We'll now begin Module 1, the introduction of Utah DOT's Accelerated Bridge Program. We're pleased to introduce our speaker, Carmen Swanwick. Carmen is the Chief Structural Engineer for the Utah DOT. She is also chair of the AASHTO Subcommittee on Bridges and Structures Technical Committee for Construction, T4, and is a member of the ABC-UTC Advisory Committee. Carmen?
Great, thank you, Mary Lou. Well, thanks for the opportunity to present today. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to kind of go into a very high-level introduction and kind of describe our ABC, our program. So within this presentation, I plan to talk about, why Utah went and initiated the ABC program at all. We wanted to establish a very strong program based on commitment and some patience and motivation that we had behind implementing ABC. Kind of discuss some of those technologies. Also go into how we develop strategies and tools to support ABC. I'm going to talk a little bit about how our outreach activities helped the public understand ABC. Kind of go into how we look at lessons learned and how we perform evaluations based on the projects that we do. So that's a very high level approach to what I'm going to discuss in this first module. So why ABC? There's a lot of goals associated with ABC, and we really started with, pursuing the reducing traffic congestions during construction, and that was really a top priority for UDOT. We also believe that it adds value to the department and public, but most of all, it really improves worker and public safety by getting construction completed earlier and away from the traveling public. But we also see that it improves quality. So within that, the whole goal was really we were responding to public needs. They didn't want to be sitting in traffic. So with that, as we started to look at our program, we wanted to establish goals to define that vision so that everybody could understand why we were pursuing ABC. So with that, we did a lot of research when we first started to implement ABC. We looked at all sorts of best practices, what other states were using ABC as well. We really wanted to get involved nationally. We coordinated with Federal Highway. We participated in AASHTO subcommittees. When implementing a technology as broad and aggressive as ABC, it's important to coordinate with the industry and the national committees. We also hosted showcase projects. We went to projects in other states that we're hosting, and something very important that we were trying to do was share information throughout the industry and especially with other states. And then coming back to Utah, obviously this is a paradigm shift in the way any DOT does business. So really there's a marketing internally and externally, senior leadership, project teams, and industry itself between consultants and contractors. So an important aspect of implementation was obtaining this support. Senior leadership realized the need to accelerate project delivery and accepted ABC as the tool to do this. So once we started getting that support, we went into performing scanning tours. We took consultant designers, contractors, fabricators, individuals from different groups within the department. We went to several other states and did peer exchanges and really tried to understand what everybody else was doing when it came to ABC. So with all this background work being done, we looked at it, we said, okay, now we're going to go and conduct a pilot project, see how it works. And based on what we learned there, we'll go and we'll start to identify a program of projects that we know we will utilize ABC on. So with that, here's our first pilot project. we used prefabricated deck panels, and this is Hoytsville Road over I-80, which is otherwise known as Wanship, and some write-ups. It was a design, bid, build project. It was designed internally by UDOT and was constructed in 2003. So it did utilize a full-depth prefabricated precast deck panels with closure pores, as you can see in the pictures. You can see a picture of the panel plus the layout of the bridge deck itself. This is over I-80, which is a very busy route, interstate for Utah. So the limitations of operations offered the contractor incentives and it required the bridge to be opened within 7 days. So the contractor was able to do that, and they did receive full incentive on this project. So with that, you know, we knew it could be done at this point. So then we started to look at our program. And so with that, we developed a program of projects, and they were based on prescriptive and performance requirements. So with that, I mean prescriptive projects, we utilize design, bid, build, and construction manager, general contractor, otherwise CMGC. And these contracting methods enabled the department to gain more experience with ABC because the project goals were clearly defined. CMGC contracting allowed the owner, designer, and contractor to work together to meet those project goals, which of course, those goals again were minimizing impacts to traffic, improved quality, and improved safety to workers. So within the CMGC, we gained experience from the contractors. We were able to work back and forth and share and benefit from the innovations that were coming up within projects. But we also had a big program at the time, and we have a lot of design builds. So we looked at performance-based projects. And so within these type of projects, a lot of times we would make the limitations of operations within the contract to a point that the contractor actually would come up with the innovations. We knew that there were viable options, but really design build allowed the contractor to initiate innovation, and it was still within that competitive environment. So what we were finding is these alternative contracting methods really complemented and excelled our ABC program at that time. So again, within this whole implementation process, you know, we had lots of projects. I mean, as you can see within this picture, we would hold workshops. At this time, I believe it's 2003, maybe 2005, we were developing some common details. We were providing training to the consultants, contractors within the industry. We're trying to get their feedback too with what was working, what wasn't working. We developed a lot of lessons learned documents throughout the process. And one thing we especially learned with the public is communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't say that enough, is that everyone should understand the reason for implementing the new technology. You know, why are we doing this? What's the benefit to the department? What's the benefit to the public? So with every project that we initiate, especially with ABC, we implement a marketing and messaging plan. Here's just some examples of things that get passed out. And so we really try to let the public know why we are doing this. We also create a lot of visual animations that explain the technology, and they've been extremely helpful, especially when talking to the public. You know, we don't get in all to the technical terminology. We try to keep it really simple. I would love to play this video for you, but it will not work with the way that we are set up. But I highly encourage you to go to the website and actually look up some of the videos that we prepared for the public. It really gives you a good idea of how involved our public relations group is with ABC projects. So then kind of getting into the ABC policy. So we wanted the department to focus and be project driven. With that being said, when we develop our projects, we don't look at ABC at the end of a project. We start at the very initial concept phase of what is going to happen within a project, whether or not ABC will be used or not. So we developed ABC decision-making procedures and processes that every project goes through at a concept level. And this document, or process I should say, is developed through the planning and then into the design stage as well. We developed a lot of manuals and specifications, and those have definitely evolved over the years. I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics because other modules will cover that. But we have a structures design and detailing manual that more or less took everything in the initial stages of ABC and is now incorporated into this manual. There's an entire chapter on it. Our project delivery network on how we deliver projects describes ABC and how we approach implementing that within projects. There's standard specifications and special provisions for projects as well. So we've really developed a lot of information that I would hope that other states could use to help develop their programs. This is just kind of a snapshot of what the ABC policy is. Cheryl will talk about it in more detail in the following module. So again, talking about the program itself. So that even starting at concept phase and in planning, we're establishing those goals. And we work with all other disciplines as far as on schedule and budget. You know, we decide what kind of contracting methods we're going to use, what type of innovation we want as part of that project. And all of that is really discussed early, because that's how you define the scope, the appropriate budget, and the schedule for that project. You also want to understand the risks. Every project is very different. Are there constructability issues? Will you need a monitoring plan or contingency plan within your project based on what ABC methods you're going to use? You know, and communicating those risks to the entire project team is extremely important as well. But also as a department, we need to, you know, recognize the benefits of what ABC can do for your project. Reduce on-site construction time, minimize traffic disruptions. There's even reduction in environmental impacts on some projects. Again, improves worker zone safety, improves quality, you know, and can provide, you know, a positive cost-benefit ratio as well when you're looking at your program in its entirety. So then we set out, we're going to integrate innovation, and we're just going to go start performing projects based on the policy and the procedures that we established. Standardization. I typically don't say standardization. I have a hard time thinking that anything is standard anymore. So we kind of have termed it's more common practice in the way that we look at projects. So we went out and we tried to establish common details, provide training and technical support based on the information that we've developed. And again, we obtained feedback. I think we're on our second round of revisions on all the information we've created for ABC from our structures design and detailing manual. So again, we're listening to the industry and making changes as we go. This is just a snapshot of Chapter 20, which is the Accelerated Bridge Construction chapter within our Structures Design and Detailing Manual. I highly recommend anybody that wants to design ABC to look at this chapter. It has a great information within it. We've definitely learned through the years. We developed a lot of sample sheets, working standards, and again, Cheryl will go in more detail on the following modules, but there's a lot of information we have out there, and they've developed through the years based on experience. Again, we have a checklist as part of our manual. This one is a heavy lift for an ABC project. We also have precast elements, checklists, and these all are very useful when developing your projects. So costs. I know that costs, everybody's always worried about costs, and that's the big question. And the approach that we've taken on projects is that you do not compare, say, at a conventional project and an ABC project. Everybody always asks me that. The way we approach a project is you define the goal of that project and you estimate the cost of that project. For example, if you have an interstate and you need it open to traffic in 2 months, you have a very short construction season, you know, you may do a slide bridge on that project. I mean, that is that project, and you estimate that project and you schedule that project for that. You don't go and compare that project to something that, you know, the goal of the project is just to get the bridge built, and it doesn't matter if it takes you 3 years. Those are two completely different projects with two completely different costs. So again, the way we approach developing projects at UDOT is you define those goals and you cost that project accordingly. There isn't a comparison between what some states would say conventional. I mean, it is the project cost defined by those goals. So going into lessons learned, we continually perform program reviews based on lessons learned. You know, of course, there's always, you could find deficiencies in anything, or but you also need to document the successes. We've had a lot of successes, and we've learned from each project. We implement corrective measures, therefore, like the revisions to our standard details and checklists as we go. And you know, you're always kind of measuring your assumptions versus what happens in reality once that project's out in construction. So it's really important to follow through throughout the project. You definitely want to learn from your experiences. Module later on will go into a lot of these, but I just wanted to show we do a lot of lessons learned, whether it's very project specific or we do have a lot of global perspective lessons learned based on all the ABC projects we have. All of these are on the website. I highly encourage anybody that wants to know more information on, you know, details we've done, lessons we've learned. You know, we've done a great job of trying to document these, and they can be found on our website. So here's a bunch of circles: public support, political capital, design build, lane rental, etc. So with the ABC goals in mind, we also evaluate within those procurement methods I talked about earlier, like what best fits your project. Do you use CMGC to limit risk by having a contractor on board early? Or do you use design build and apply limitations of operations, incentives, and disincentives to promote the contractor innovations to meet the goal? There's so many ways to set up your project. Limitations of operations, incentives, disincentives, priceless time, all of these, you know, can be evaluated as you establish the project. And again, like what we found, like using different contracting methods can really complement and basically excel an ABC program. But again, you know, we're always looking to add value and reducing the traveling public sitting in construction. So again, in summary, public support is huge, and we value the public. The public really does consider UDOT to be innovative in their approach to projects. Two of the most important elements are that public support and political capital, and never underestimate that outreach program that you can do. I mean, the public loves it, the legislature loves it. It really is beneficial to have them on your side. I mean, as you can see in this picture, this was our first SPMT move. We had 10,000 people standing on the side of the road watching us move this first bridge into place. Some other things that we've done to get public input and feedback. These are a little old. We haven't done included ABC in questions in recent years, but I believe this was in 2011. You know, we go out, we try to measure our performance. So we asked the public, have you seen or heard of this new ABC method of constructing bridges? And even in 2011, according to this survey, at least 93% of the public knew what ABC was. I mean, that is a really high number when you're looking at the public and the surveys that go out from DOTs. The next question that we asked is, knowing that ABC reduces traffic congestion and road closures, but increases costs, do you favor or oppose UDOT continuing to use ABC to build bridges on its major highways? And of that, 91% of the public surveyed, they favored strongly favored the use of ABC, which basically goes to show is that the public does not want to sit in traffic. They want you to get in and get out as fast as you can. This is also another video that is on the UDOT website. I believe it'll be part of this webinar archive as well. But the UDOT goes out and they ask just, you know, the public, pedestrians, or questions about UDOT. And this gentleman is talking about bridges being moved. It's really quite humorous because the technical terms are asphalt, move this, all sorts of odd things. So sometimes it's funny to see what the public actually thinks of you. But I highly recommend going to our website. We have a ton of information on there that talks about our program, what we do, lessons learned. And that is really what I have on a high level, basically introduction to UDOT's ABC program.
Thank you, Carmen. Great overview of Utah's Accelerated Bridge Program. We'll now begin the Q&A session moderated by Ben Bierman. Ben?
Thanks, Mary Lou. Carmen, great job. I thought you did a great job explaining why Utah has chosen an accelerated bridge program over conventional methods. I'll start getting some of these questions that kind of talk at that very high level about the program and the history. About what percentage of your bridge replacements now are performed using accelerated bridge construction?
I don't really have a number on that. And the reason why is if I look at our program, the way that UDOT is set up, Structures has a bridge program, but then a lot of other capacity projects don't come through the bridge program. Region projects don't necessarily come through the bridge program. But I guess if I was to say a number, I could say maybe 40% have some sort of accelerated bridge construction as part of on a whole.
Okay. And the other question here kind of steps back a step. Around what year would you say Utah initiated their pursuit of an ABC program?
That was 2002 when we initiated the first project.
Okay. And did this come from your leadership, or did the drive come from somewhere inside your agency, say at the project level, or did it come externally from the public or from the political side, this push to pursue an accelerated bridge program?
I believe there are some senior leaders at the time, but a lot of it also came from feedback from the public. So I think I would say that it's a combined effort in how the program was initiated.
And it seems to come out in your presentation that drive was perhaps to reduce impacts to traffic. But then you mentioned all these other intrinsic benefits, public and worker safety, quality, the environmental impacts. So how far along were you into your accelerated bridge program? Did you all start to realize that there were benefits beyond just the impacts to minimize traffic disruptions?
I believe that we recognized that in the very beginning.
Really? Wow.
So even with the first project, you know, we basically realized there's a lot of benefits that come with accelerated bridge construction. And I think just the way we're set up here, you know, we have a very good relationship with our contractors and our fabricators. And I think everybody, all of those groups recognized that we needed to do something different. And I believe everybody was on board to move the program forward.
Would you say the growing pains were difficult, challenging, or just something that needed to be done and it made sense by all and it was sort of a group effort? How did that come about?
Well, I think when you initiate any change, there's always a little bit of growing pains. But I think, you know, the industry itself recognized the benefits. I mean, even the consulting community. We have a very big program here. Contractors, fabricators, I believe everybody recognized that, you know, we needed to get projects done faster.
So now you have to be honest, Carmen. All right, this is a hook question.
I'm always honest.
I know that. You mentioned a lot of training as you guys were developing your program. What part of the industry was easier or more difficult to train? Was that your internal folks internal to your agency, your consultants, your fabricators, your contractors, your leadership, your political folks, the public?
Well, it's a difficult question because I think we were all really at the same stage at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the DOT wasn't ahead of the consultants. The consultants weren't ahead of the DOT. Same for contractors and our fabricators. I really think it was a joint effort, and we were all learning at the same time. I mean, granted, there were challenges. There were fit-up issues. You know, we have leaking joints on some of these projects. You know, but, you know, we knew that would happen. But you have to at least try it so you can learn from it.
So would you say there was definitely a culture of lean forward in this whole process and not to be afraid of the mistakes, to build upon that as a learning experience?
Right. It was definitely a paradigm shift in the way we did business here at UDOT.
You mentioned the marketing, the communication, and outreach plan. If we kind of use the general rule of thumb, say your engineering is anywhere from 10 to 20% of your development cost, how much of a percentage would you say is the marketing and the communication component that you guys do? You do a lot of videos, flyers, and things of that nature.
Like a 1 to 2% maybe, but it goes
Really?
a long way.
I was going to say, with it's such a small percentage, how much of a payoff would you say that is?
It's a huge return.
And do you all continue with those efforts as much as you did from the very beginning of your program, or does it taper off, or how does that look over time in terms of that effort that you put into that?
I say we do more now, even, because I think we've recognized what value it has to the project. And so, yeah, I do believe on, especially like our larger design build projects, and even just some of our large TMGC projects, it's very valuable to let the public know what's going on. And so we spend a lot. It's a small dollar value, but it really goes a long way.
Well, and that's indicative of that survey you did in 2011 on how many people were aware of accelerated bridge construction, on how effective that outreach is actually occurring, to see the public actually knowledgeable of what you're doing. And the transportation.
On a lot of projects, and I'll kind of talk about this in further modules, but you know, on some SPMT moves, we'll have thousands of people just sit on the side of the road and watch us move bridges into place. So it's pretty impressive to see.
Yeah. So about your program, you talked about the effectiveness or efficiencies that you're picking up. Do you, from the overall procurement time, and we'll call it the time from planning to when you advertise the project for construction under like a design bid build procurement strategy, do you feel like your overall procurement time to do that engineering work is the same, less, or longer than what you all were doing in the past with your conventional projects?
I would say it's the same. I mean, we typically are within, and I'm going to speak from our bridge program specifically and not capacity project programs or region projects right now. You know, basically from concept until it's advertised, whether it's ABC or not, is within a year.
Okay. Well, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to hold off. There's a couple other questions, but I think it might be more appropriate to ask these in Module 2. So with that, Carmen, that's going to wrap up the Q&A session for Module 1. If there's anything else you want to add to it, feel free to. Other than that, we'll just pass it on to Mary Lou for a closing.
Thank you, Ben and Carmen. We're now at the end of the first 40-minute module. Thanks again to Carmen Swanwick for presenting Module 1